10 years old in a junkyard town. Sunbeam Alpine, windows down. Men twice my size, I learned their names by broken bolts and open flames. Ice at night, steel by day. Wade was truth, it never lied. I didn't dream, I didn't wait. I lifted what was in my way. Hard iron, dust in time. Hands get strong when hunger's mine. You don't ask, you don't pretend. You carry weight until it bends. Hard iron, burned in skin. Boy grows old before he's been. Anything soft falls behind. Just hard iron and time. 15 years in a motel room. Dish pit heat, red sauce fumes. Chef saw something I couldn't name. Put a knife in my hand, taught me flame. Responsibility came fast. Men got quiet, watched me work. Pressure didn't break my back. It showed me who I was worth. Hard iron, earn respect. You're only good as what you fix. No applause, no safety net. Just what you handle, what you miss. Hard iron, steady grind. Identity got forged in line. Nothing pushed, nothing kind. Just hard iron in time. Uniform tight, mind pulled thin. Learn control by boxing in it. Anger leash not thrown away. Put it to work, made it stay. Systems break, I see the seams. I build them straight, I make them run. Didn't notice what it cost. I only noticed what got done. Years stack up like loaded plates. Heart keeps pace, it never complains. You tell yourself you're built for this. That strength forgives, that grit persists. Then one day the body speaks. Not a warning, just release. Cold floor, white lights overhead. Doctors' words don't raise their voice. Heart don't care what you've survived. It doesn't grade your choices. I lay still, felt time slow. Every mile arrive at once. All that iron, all that will. Couldn't bargain, couldn't punch. Hard iron, still beating, but not the way it used to be. You don't outrun, you don't outwork what asked you finally to see. Hard iron, lesson learned. Some weights were never meant to turn. Nothing heroic, nothing kind, just hard iron and time. I didn't stop because I was done. I stopped because I was still here.
Morning light through the window pane, coffee steaming, no rush, no lane. World's been shouting all night long. I pour a cup, let the silence talk. I didn't leave angry, didn't storm the door. I just stepped sideways away from the roar. Pull up a chair, let the clock unwind. This isn't breaking news, it's breaking the grind. They sell fear by the hour, package rage by the pound. Every screen's got an opinion, every voice trying to sound like they know what's coming, like they've cracked the code. But the loudest ones panic when you step off the road. I've seen cycles repeat, watch them rise, watch them fall. Empires shouting forever right before they stall. So I sip and I watch, let the headlines fight. Truth don't need a megaphone, it waits out the night. They want speed, they want fire, they want sides, they want lines, they want heroes and villains every damn time. But life ain't a headline, ain't red versus blue. It's quiet decisions people never review. Yeah, yeah, they want me. Notice the patterns align. storm's loud. Nah, freedom's calm. It's knowing when to walk while the others all run. I'm not late to the party, I just left it early. Seen how it ends, same mess, same worries. This is coffee time live, where the noise burns out, where we sit with the facts till the truth shows up. No filters, no frenzy, no borrowed rage, just long view thinking in a short fuse age. Let down slouch or from above. So take a breath, let the cup cool down. The world will keep spinning without your sound. We'll be right here when the dust don't fly. Coffee on the table, morning in the sky. This is coffee time, live. No need to run. We'll talk again when the day's begun.
Sunlight spills through the cafe door. Mic goes live like it's done before. 9 years deep in these mountain towns, we brew the truth, not just sit around. I came for a visit and stayed for the view, but the soul of this place, it just pulls you through. Mornings in Finlandia, nights in Salento. Life don't move fast, but man, it's full tempo. This ain't a pitch, it's real as it gets. From lost bags to love and bureaucratic regrets. No script here, just the sound of real lives told live every week under Colombian skies. It's coffee time lived from the heart of Quindio, where the screen fades out and the real stories flow from expats who landed and locals who guide. We laugh, we vent, we cry, we ride. It's not about views, it's about the vibe. Just raw conversation, live and alive. Got folks tuning in from every time zone, asking what's it like to make this place your own. It's mango trees, it's rent debates, it's finding peace past the clickbait gates. Some days we talk visas, some days we just breathe and sip dark roast while the valley grieves through mudslides, marches, markets, and mess. We show up with stories, no more, no less. It's coffee time live, not just a name on a screen. It's 9 years of mornings and everything between. No hype, just heart and a decent brew. A place for the honest, the warm, the true. Not selling dreams, just sharing the ride from right here in Quindío live. And if you've ever felt a little lost or wide awake at dawn, this show was made for you to lean on. We're not tourists here, we belong, we build in mountain towns where the air stands still. So bring your mug, your doubts, your days. We'll light 'em up in soft cafe rays. It's not a podcast, it's a porch light glow. It's home and a headline, a yes and a no. It's coffee time live. Come as you are from my table in Colombia to wherever you are.
Good morning and welcome back to the channel, Gran Colombia, and welcome to another Coffee Time Live here in Armenia, Quindío, Colombia. Cheers. Back on the mocha beans. Okay, thank you all for being here. I started real early for particular reasons here. So rather than have a blank screen, I put on some music and here we go. All right, so we'll start off. I'm going to, today, most of it is all about 3 topics that are happening in Colombia currently. So the news headlines and the main topic are pretty much, they blend. They're kind of all in one. But I'm going to talk in the beginning about AI and the exchange rate. So let's take a look here. All right, the temperature, it's currently 73 degrees. We're supposed to get a high of 74. It's been pretty cool. It's actually, we had one hellacious rain this morning. Most of you were probably sleeping. I woke up about 2:30 this morning. I don't know what's going on. It's getting typical. I wake up 2:30, 3 o'clock, 3:30, and then somewhere around 10 o'clock, I have narcolepsy. I pass out. I don't remember going to sleep. I don't remember even being tired. I just find myself an hour to an hour and a half later waking up. It's like, what the hell? And then I go until about 11, 12 o'clock at night. But it's weird falling asleep and not knowing that you're falling asleep. It's like somebody just turned off a light switch, and then I wake up and realize I've been sleeping. Anyway, so the Colombian exchange rate today is, in this moment, is 36.58. So I decided, I've been doing a lot in my personal channel about AI, some pretty interesting topics. I've got one coming up. I thought I was actually going to do it Friday or yesterday, but it's about emergence and some things I've experienced. There's a couple papers that are actually published out there right now, about 50 pages worth, because I've been documenting something. Anyway, it's on my personal channel, but I decided to ask AI to predict for the next week and for the next month what the exchange rate is going to be. And I talked to Chat GPT and Grok and Claude and Gemini. So I will show you the prompt. They all got the copy and paste, the exact same prompt. Please give me a detailed analysis of the currency exchange rate of the USA and Colombia. Please predict the next week and month using short bullet points only. The response should be as tight as possible and written by a financial expert, giving the best possible answer. So you would think that they would be basically the same thing, right? My last video on my personal channel went into explaining why you have to learn how to use AI, because until you learn, it's just going to lie to you. So that was the prompt. And let's see, I'll look at the first one here is GPT. And it was very wordy, and it actually stretched it out. So I had to make 2 slides out of it. Here's next week forecast. Expected range 3980 to 4120. Bias towards an upward drift. Then it talks about the details. And then we'll get to, for the month, 4,000 to 4,200. US dollar strengthening trend resumes. That actually would have been, if anybody had asked me, I would have said pretty much what that said. So I got that and I go, well, that's cool. That's what I figure. Owen, thank you very much. Thank you. Now let's see what Grok has to say. Next week, 36 to 3680. Strong dollar, 37.20. Bearish. So he gave the high side and the low side. And for the next month, 35.40 to 36.40, considerably under what GPT says. And even though it mentions the dollar strengthening, it doesn't reflect it in its numbers. Doesn't surprise me. Currently, Grok's kind of useless, but I expect in about 6 months it will blow past every other one. Anyway, here's Claude. This is my favorite. The problem is it eats up its tokens pretty quick. 1 week forecast 3640, 3720. 1 month 3650, 3800. And last and probably least is Gemini. That's Google's version. And you would think, if you read the specs, it's the best, most powerful. I find it the most useless. But expected range 3640, 3710. And 1 month 3680, 3850. Practically no change. So you see a fair amount of variation. Of course, next week you would expect them all to be fairly close, but then you go out to the next month and it's kind of all over the board. It went from 3,500 to 41, I think. It's a pretty good spread. So my point, don't rely on AI for anything that's important. Granted, this is a prediction, but it provides factual information about as well. It takes a lot of effort to learn how to squeeze good use out of AI. I mentioned it was Mocha, which reminds me, somebody asked me about Mocha. When I mentioned it before, I never addressed it. And they said something about putting chocolate in it. And no, Mocha is the actual variety. It's the bean. There's no chocolate involved in it. It's where the term Mocha came from. It's a rare bean. It's from Yemen. It's very difficult to find. It's very rare. And just to show you, there's actually a visible difference. I've got it next to Tabi bean, which is basically a regular size bean. If you take a look, you see there's 2 Tabis, and then see those little tiny ones there. Those are the Mocha beans. The smallest coffee beans I'm aware of. They taste it reminds you of dark chocolate, which is why the term mocha began getting used as associated with chocolate. And if you get a mochaccino, you're actually getting chocolate. You're not getting the mocha coffee bean. We'll almost not find the mocha bean. It's very difficult to locate, but it's really good. For a while, I thought it was my favorite, but I keep going back to bourbon rosado, and I have to conclude, of all the different coffees, I've got some geisha here. I've got Tabi. By far, it's bourbon rosado. I just love the bourbon rosado. Let's see. I don't think AI is any better at predicting the exchange rate than I am. Well, that's about right. I agree. You don't want to get people angry at you over predictions because nobody really knows. Okay. Did the exchange rate? Did that? I showed the mocha bean. Trying to remember everything. All right, we'll go to some, excuse me. I got tickling going on. I don't know. Falling apart. I've got, let's see, the news headlines. And then we'll go right into the main topic. This one was kind of interesting. Colombia model captured in Armenia. She pled guilty to laundering more than 30 million in drug money. That's not 30 million pesos. That's actually $30 million. Usually these headlines will have pesos. But when I read the story, she lives here in Armenia. She's got properties all over Colombia, and she's got properties in 5 or 6 places in the United States, North Carolina and Georgia. It's like all over the place. And she's a money launderer. She's 33 years old, I think. And she works sort of as a model. That's her front. She doesn't really look like a model to me because I think of models as being kind of skinny rails, and she's kind of like your typical Colombian, big breasted, big booty, that kind of thing. But yeah, so they got caught. And there's something going on, which I'm going to address, about a lot of capturing activity happening right now. But the big story that's affecting Colombians is the Council of State provisionally suspends a decree on the increase of minimum wage. And I talked about it last week, maybe, or the week before, where Petro decided to bypass the usual process, and he declared a 23% increase on the minimum wage. Now, most people get paid more than minimum wage. There's a big misunderstanding. People see the minimum wage and they say, oh, people in Colombia only make whatever that is. And it's not the case. Sharik, for example, she makes more than 3 times the minimum wage. And she's just out of university. So I know a lot of people that make far more. Actually, I'm not even sure if I know anybody that makes minimum. I probably do if I actually think about it. But most people are middle class and above. You got 30%, I believe, somewhere around or 27% that fall into the kind of the minimum wage area. Might be a little bit more. I mean, don't quote me on it, but the general idea is true. So if you have that idea, put it out of your head. But it does have an effect on a lot of things, because all fines and fees and anything that comes out from the government is based on the minimum wage and multiples of it. The visa, you have to have how many? Somebody know how many times the minimum wage? It's 3 times, I think, 3 times the minimum wage as a retirement income to qualify for a retirement visa. So whatever the minimum wage is, it really matters. And a 23% increase was crazy. I had AI do a search for me on Colombian social media to gather up comments for me and summarize them and then provide me with examples so I could see what people all over Colombia were saying about it. And it was a kind of surprising. I thought that more people would say, "Oh, yay!" But it appeared that now, it's kind of anecdotal, although I think it was pretty reliable with that kind of search. But it appeared that the majority of people understood that an increase that dramatic would have a big effect on cost of living. And so people drawing minimum wage currently could celebrate, but in a few months could end up being hurt by it. And people seem to be aware of that. But here's the problem. They institute this minimum wage with a healthy increase. If you're getting paid and you get 20-30% increase, that's something. And then a week or two later, there's threat of pulling it away. Now that's a whole different ballgame. If it's very difficult to give something and take it away. And so we're gonna talk about that when I get to the main topic. And I got a couple more, and then we'll go right into the main topic. Chad, good morning. How are you? Owen, I said thank you. Dan, I read yours. Becky, I thought it was just me, crazy sleep pattern. I don't know. It's probably old age. It seems to me that there's a stereotype about old people sitting in a chair and just falling asleep and drooling on themselves. That's how I've been feeling lately, except my awake hours are actually a lot. It's not like I'm sleeping all the time, but it compensates apparently for me waking up. It's probably this vicious cycle, it's like I get extra sleep and then then I get up early. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, first one, extradition. Colombia's La Inmaculada drug lord extradited to the U.S. hours before the Petro-Trump meeting that just recently occurred at the beginning of the month. So just before he went to see Trump, this guy was extradited. This headline was actually just a few days ago, so I'm not sure what that's about. But I've kind of interesting, not a surprise. It's like, throwing out a goodwill gesture before he goes to visit him, the Wizard of Oz. And this one was Friday. It's Interpol. I can't read it. Ruben Dario Garcia, caught in Armenia by Interpol and the Colombian police. They've been after this guy for quite some time. I'll talk in detail in a little bit. And extradited to the United States. There's been a massive amount of extraditions this month. So how does the minimum wage and the extradition and the Petro meeting in the U.S., what do they have in common? We'll see if I can figure that out. Okay. So those three things happened this week, and I figure they all have a connection. If you're an American expat in Colombia, it all kind of matters. Colombia's top court suspended the minimum wage increase. That was the judicial branch of the court. Major drug traffickers got captured and extradited, including one arrested the Friday that I mentioned. And Petro walked into the White House where Trump called him terrific and gave him a "Let's Make America Great Again, America's Great Again" hat. So what's going on? What threat am I seeing here? So this last Wednesday, Colombia's Council of State, the administrative court, suspends the government's 23.7% minimum wage increase. it's provisional, but it's unprecedented. Provisional in that they've given 8 days for Petro to come up with a reasonable and rational explanation of why he did what he did, because nobody can see it. The decree that raised the minimum wage to 1,750,000, et cetera, and with all the extras, it goes to 2 million, is now on hold. And the court says the government has 8 days to issue a new decree with the proper technical justification. As I said, when Petro came out with this, he just said it, but that's not what the law says. This seems to be a fight here about institutional power. 16 lawsuits got filed against the wage decree. Business groups, transportation federations, a whole bunch of groups and businesses all claim Petro ignored the legal criteria and used politics instead of economics. And the court agreed. Workers are still going to get paid the higher amount until the new decree comes out. So whether the new decree comes out and it remains the same, or if it gets cut down a little bit, if there's some sort of compromise, that will be when wages potentially can change. But until then, whatever they're getting, they're going to continue to get. So it won't change this week, but you've got a lot of people that are panicking about it. The message is clear. The executive branch just got checked by the judicial branch. Petro's allies are furious. Cepeda called it arbitrary and regressive, and he's calling for street protests. The whole leftist coalition is positioning this as an attack on workers. You know, they're coming out with all their talking points. If you're looking at the news, you'll see this stuff. Now, business groups are celebrating. They're saying Petro's increase would have killed 770,000 jobs and crushed small businesses. So who's right? Well, both. The inflation data supports a lower increase. The legal framework supports the court's decision. But the political symbolism of a court blocking a wage increase for workers right before an election year, that could be a problem. This fight shows power in motion: courts versus executive, business versus labor, institutional checks versus populist promises. And the timing of this, it all matters. Now for the second part. February 3rd, early morning, hours before Petro boards a plane to meet Trump, Colombia extradites Andres Silva, alias Pipe Talua, to the United States. He's a leader of a major drug organization. 70 officers, drones, helicopters, anti-explosive units at 17 locations across Bogota at the same time, all moved in and moved him out in the cover of darkness. He landed in Texas to face cocaine trafficking charges, and he operated in coordination with the Sinaloa cartel. He was a very high-value target, and the timing, obviously, it wasn't accidental. The question arises, why wasn't this done last year? Why wasn't this done 2 years ago? Why did you wait until hours before you go see Trump, when Trump's big issue is the fact that drug cartels are running rampant in Colombia? The very reason that Maduro was captured. And then Friday, as I mentioned, right here in Armenia, Interpol operation, along with the Colombian National Police, captured Ruben Garcia, right here in the heart of the coffee region. And he was I guess you'd say the manager. He wasn't the head of, but he had a lot to do with an international criminal organization nicknamed the Devils or Diablos. The charges: international narcotics trafficking, criminal conspiracy, and of course, cocaine shipments to the United States and Europe. This wasn't in Cali, it wasn't in Medellin, it wasn't in Bogota, it was right here in Armenia, our streets, our region. This joint operation, the Colombian police and Interpol, you don't see that here every day. Because this area is so calm and peaceful, it may not be a good place for them to operate out of, but apparently it's a place where they feel they can hide and not be noticed because maybe they haven't been looking. But as I've been highlighting this for the last 6 months, that's all been getting dialed up. So this kind of coordination with Interpol, it doesn't happen for small fish, that's for sure. Garcia was allegedly trafficking a network embedded in what looked like a legitimate telecommunications business. Yeah. An entire telecommunications business set up as a front for the cartels. That was when I read that was some mind-boggling stuff. I had to reread it. So when I talk about extraditions and enforcement accelerating, understand this is happening in places you shop and eat. Now step back and look at Petro's history on extradition. He opposed extradition for years. He believed in, he said, negotiation, substitution programs, internal justice for Colombian victims, which he would call traffickers, instead of shipping traffickers to American prisons. But under Petro, currently, Colombia has approved 521 extraditions to the USA. There's been 800 on the books. Yeah, I had to look this up. I had never thought about this. So it's like, well, that seems crazy. How many requests have there been? Just in the last couple of years, there's 800. And he's already approved 521 of these, and they've been daily acting on this. Interpol is all over Colombia currently. It's not something that they're putting out there as a headline, but as you read these stories, it becomes very obvious. They're all over the place. That's cooperation. So, what changed? That meeting with Trump and possibly what happened to Maduro. I'm not sure. Remember, this goes back September 2025 when Trump decertified Colombia for failing to control cocaine production. He revoked Petro's visa. He put him on the sanctions list, him personally, not Colombia, because they pin all of this on Petro, not on Colombia itself. In December, Trump threatened Petro publicly and said he better wise up or he'll be next. In January, Petro initially refused U.S. deportation flights. Trump threatened tariffs and Petro folded within hours. You may remember that. It was kind of humorous. Then February 3rd, Petro walks into the Oval Office. Trump calls him terrific, gives him a nice hat. 2 hours later, in a private meeting, no formal state visit, comes in and out the side entrance, no military honors, but Trump says they got along very well. And Petro's government presented data on 200 anti-narcotics operations. He went there with that in hand. He did his homework. Those are things that he should have done on his own. Maybe not necessarily the extraditions, but why have he's made no action whatsoever to curb what's going on in Colombia since he was elected. As a matter of fact, there's evidence you could say he's actually been facilitating it. Now you could argue he hasn't. I think the information's there, but either way, it's grown. It's grown. There's more activity in Colombia than ever in its history. Now, we may not have a Pablo kicking around, but the activity is greater than in those days. It wasn't like that prior to the election. And in the US, they saw that, and the pressure has been, they just kept ramping it up. And thankfully, he's responded in this way. The extradition of this Pipe Talua, it wasn't random. The capture in Armenia wasn't random. These are signals of cooperation, of pragmatism, maybe recalibration by Petro. And he came to that meeting with something to offer, and Trump accepted it. So now we got three moving pieces: courts flexing power on minimum wage, security apparatus flexing enforcement on extradition and captures, including in Quindío, and the executive branch recalibrating international posture with Trump. This is structural tension all across Colombia's institutions. This is activity in the courts, with the administration, and with law enforcement that has not taken place in years, and to the degree that it is, maybe ever. The judiciary blocked Petro's wage policy, and the business sector is demanding economic realism. The left coalition is mobilizing street protests. Meanwhile, Petro is quietly shifting his security posture with Washington. Tactical, well, absolutely. Survival, probably. Genuine moderation, it's too hard to tell. But I think what happened in Venezuela was it was a message to be taken seriously. And I think that's what we're seeing. I mean, the pattern is clear. Petro is under pressure from multiple directions. The courts also put a gag order on him. If you do a search on Petro in the courts recently, there's been a number of actions taken against him. And rightfully so, because of particular things that he's been doing that are beyond what the office allows. And then you've got business that are very upset with him, and Trump, of course. His own coalition's not very happy with him. And he's responding by moving towards the center on security cooperation while defending his social policies domestically. He's walking a tightrope. He can't be elected this next time around. But you can have power even once you're out of office if you can keep your own people in office. So the stakes are just as high, because I had somebody say, well, he's not going to run again, so it doesn't matter. That's not the case. If his people go in, he's still there involved and he has power. If they lose entirely, and if a new regime comes in, either center or center right, he's completely out of the picture. He's a civilian again. And if he's a civilian again, it leaves him exposed to some criminal charges. I've talked about that in the past. Maybe that was in the premium channel. I'm not sure, but there's some real exposure there. Now, if you're an American expat in Quindío, here's what you need to watch out for: exchange rate and inflation. The minimum wage suspension creates uncertainty. The markets don't like uncertainty. The peso could weaken further. The US dollar has had a series of very positive indicators that weren't expected. I mean, Trump said it, but everybody else is saying they didn't expect it. The rate of inflation numbers that just came out are considerably lower than they expected. The job numbers were practically double. Lost jobs in the government, but a massive increase in private sector, which is what you want to see. And so the dollar has been strengthening. And if this weakens the peso, this could snowball in our favor. However, inflation pressure could come into play if that minimum wage gets approved and goes through. So we've got a tug of war going on. Now, if they come up with a new decree, let's say they say well, 23.7's just out of hand. It's ridiculous. So why don't we do 10%? All right, that's certainly going to help. But you've got things like food prices and rents. They're not going to reverse. There's already been changes made that are not really reversible, such as rent increases. Rent increases are calculated based on those kind of numbers, and those are pretty much locked in. Not on the minimum wage, but on inflation rates. But it's all interconnected. So we want to watch what the government issues in the next 8 days. It matters to everybody you know in Columbia, even if it's not minimum wage. It matters in a lot of ways. And if the decree stays close to the original, inflation's going to stay high or go higher than it is. If it drops significantly, expect business confidence to have an improvement, and at least it'll be settled. Having everything up in the air is even worse. Also, keep an eye out for political stability. Street protests are coming. The left coalition, it's not one party, it's a number of parties, but they're all together on this, and the leader of every one, Cepeda, Quintero, Bolivar, they're all calling people into the streets. Of course, it's pre-election positioning. We know that. But anything that they can pin their hat on, such as this wage issue, what better to motivate people to get out and appear that you're getting your support? So expect mobilization in major cities anyway. In Condillo, maybe not so much. We'll probably see some demonstrations. But here, I've mentioned this before, but when we have those protests here in Condillo, they're really more, in general, celebrations. There may be exceptions. I don't know, but everyone that I've seen, I've walked through them. They'll be dancing and sharing food and laughing and just having a good time. You know, any reason for a party kind of thing. But it can get very serious in Cali, for example. It wasn't that long ago where it went kind of crazy and there were people that died, and it was pretty ugly. Pereira had an incident where somebody got shot. Medellin had some issues. So as we get closer to the election, these kind of things are major issues. So the national mood is probably going to get dialed up. Now, for the most part, that means noise, not danger. This is not an anti-American thing. That tie is still there. I realize in Medellin, I've talked about this recently, there are some issues going on in Medellin, but it's isolated. People in Colombia still like and appreciate people from the United States. There's hundreds of years of connection there. But just be aware of what's going on and don't get involved in what's happening, because you never know how things are going to go. Just go about your day. That's, you don't have to worry about it, but be aware. This Armenia capture shows active Interpol and Colombian police cooperation happening here in Condillo. And Condillo isn't immune from high-level enforcement operations. On the other hand, that's kind of reassuring because it shows that the state has capacity and international backing. In other words, this coffee region is the gem of Colombia. There's real advantage of living here. And when things happen elsewhere, we have protection and insulation from real problems here, which is probably why the criminals came to hide here. Now, Petro's pivot towards cooperation with Trump, that stabilizes the bilateral relationship. That's actually good. It's good for visa processing, remittances, general diplomatic predictability. This is all good stuff. But if you're watching Venezuela, that matters too. Petro's cooperation with Washington on narcotics gives him more room to navigate Venezuela policy independently. He just bought himself some flexibility. There was pressure on him to do particular things. That pressure is now off because he's acting within Colombia. Visa requirements, there's no immediate changes on the horizon. Did a search, there's nothing proposed. But improved U.S.-Colombian relations reduce the risk of a sudden visa complication or processing delays. So here's a question nobody seems to be asking yet. Is Petro's shift tactical optics, survival, or genuine moderation? Personally, I think it's about survival. He came into office as a leftist reformer. He promised total peace, social justice, redistribution of wealth, but he's facing courts that won't rubber stamp his decrees, business sectors that have real power, an American president who threatened him personally. And of course, an election cycle where his coalition needs wins. So he's trying to adopt. He's cooperating on extraditions to stabilize with Washington. He's defending wage policies to energize his base. So for expats, this is all good news. And it may be obvious. I don't know how you see it. I get embroiled in these things and I lose perspective. So what I'm telling you may be obvious to you, and the connection may be obvious, but it appears to me that most people don't read the local news or the national news. They're just living their life, which is fine, which is what you should be doing. And that's what I'm here for, is to do that for you and to let you know. But if you were to get a headline here or there and kind of freak out, like the extradition move that happened here in Armenia, if you don't really know what's going on, you could look at that and say, oh my God, the cartels have moved into Quindío. And that's not what's happening at all. You had somebody hiding here, but that's why they're hiding, because there is no operation here so you don't expect to have all eyes looking for you. And apparently for that model, it was working pretty well, because she had been here for, she's from here, but she's been hiding out here in Armenia for several years. So that's why I chose it. I decided to take the headlines that I saw a thread and present it to you guys and give you my point of view. So what do you think? I mean, I ask you this all the time. Is that kind of topic okay for coffee time, or am I getting off into the weeds? Do you just not care about these sorts of things? That's Colombian. I don't really care. I don't know. I don't worry about the stuff myself because it is Colombia, and I'm living in my own bubble, and whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And some people have backup plans. I don't have any need for it. I don't feel that there's anything crazy going on. But I figure maybe some of you want to know. BNIC, thanks for the excellent analysis. Much better than AI. You're my I'm your agentic chat bot. Perfect for coffee time. All right, well, good. Thank you. I thought so. I mean, it can't always be about, here I am in Salento, and here's where you can buy some nice trout. And I've done over 1,000 videos, and somewhere around 800 of them here in Colombia. It's like, maybe I should talk about things that are important here in Colombia and could have some effect on us. I said this before, and it's not me being Pollyannish. I'm not happy that the peso is where it is. I'm really not happy about it. I understand why it happened, but I also see what's happening in the United States stop the fall kind of in its tracks. And I see a reversal coming. And as you saw, the GPT model, it's kind of in the same boat. And I've said this before, I really think that we're going to be back up probably by March, back up around the 4,000 range. And this year should be pretty good for us. But like I say, you never know. And what comes tomorrow could change everything. But these things all have their effect. It all makes a difference. We like to hear about it. Well, good. I'm glad. I was worried about it. I almost didn't do this topic because I don't know. Maybe sometimes I don't give you guys enough credit. Sometimes I think, well, you really just want to know the touristy stuff, and I tend to get too absorbed in things to really want to do that, or at least to continue. If I've done Salento 3 or 4 times, do I really want to do it a 5th time? And people say, well, why don't you? I have people ask me about Salento, and it's like, I got videos already there. Go take a look. I'm walking through. I'm more than one, covering a bunch of different things. I went there and stayed one night in a hotel just to get a party that was going on at night in the square. I feel like kind of done it to death. I've walked up to the steps and looked out at the beautiful view down at the Cocora Valley, and what more can I do there? It's just a small town. And so when I've done every small town except Montenegro, well, I actually did a little bit in Montenegro, but I have no desire to do that, or La Tebaida for particular reasons. I don't think people should be going there. But I've covered pretty much everything else. And then what do you talk about? It's the more you know, the better choices you can make. I think that this information is fine for coffee time. Your topics are always very informative. Your info helps me navigate with ease. Nice. Those are nice comments. Thank you. I appreciate it. Usually I ask and nobody even responds. Oh, by the way, the chat, if you look at the icon, it's the Coffee Time logo. It's no longer the Grand Columbia where we had the black background and the white background, and which one and what didn't work. So I went into this particular channel. The account is Grand Columbia. Within that account, I've got Sane in Columbia, my personal channel. I've got Coffee Time, which was Grand Columbia, because it's where I post everything related to Columbia. And then another channel, which is on hold. So I decided I mostly do Coffee Time these days. Uh-oh. What happened? What happened? Something happened to my camera. It just blanked out. I think you can probably still hear me, but it's as good place as any to end the show. So thank you all for being here. Sorry about whatever that was with the camera. And there. I will see you next week, but stay tuned this week. I've got a couple videos, live videos that'll be on my personal channel, and I hope to see you there. I've got a lot of in-depth things on AI. Audio's fine, video no good. Yeah, the camera just crapped. I've never had that happen before. It's a very expensive camera too, so hopefully nothing's wrong with it. Hopefully it's just some software thing that happened. But I've already done a partial series on AI. The last one was, I think, 2 hours, and it was kind of almost an instructional video talking about how to steer around some of the real issues with AI. I've got one coming up on emergence. There's some key things that have happened at Anthropic. AI is coming alive already, years ahead of prediction. I've actually got a couple examples of it documented. The CEO of Anthropic has admitted it, and another member of the board, I forget his name, Sharma, I think is his last name. He's been there for some years. He quit and said that he's afraid. So I'm going to talk about that. I've got the details on that. I did post up on X 2 papers written by possibly emerged AI. Well, I'm not going to go into it here, but I think it's fascinating. If you have any interest in that kind of thing, I'll be talking about it. It will be live and you can participate. So I will see you this coming week. Ciao.